Or good afternoon, I guess I should say, everybody. My name is Sheila Gidley, and I am your AIP administrator. And thanks to all of you for taking part in today's webinar. You know what, I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to unmute everybody for just a second and make sure everybody can see and hear what's going on, just because we did things a little differently. Can people just respond and let me know if you can see the screen and hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see the screen.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thanks very much, everybody. I'm going to remute. Okay, great. So here we go. And before we actually get started, I wanted to remind everybody that registration for the AIP Conference on Philanthropy is now open. Taking place April 24th through 26th, this year's conference is held at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas, and we've added on a full day of additional sessions and activities. And it begins with the Community Service Project, which takes place in the morning. And if you choose to take part in that, you can either go to the 3 Square Food Pantry and volunteer with your AIP friends to sort food, or go on a site visit at Goodwill of Southern Nevada. It should be a lot of fun, very interesting. Then, when that is over, we all come back to the hotel for lunch, and we've got a lineup of sessions for you. So take a look at advisorsinphilanthropy.org. You can sign up right away, and it should be a lot of fun. So today's webinar is titled How Nonprofits Can Leverage Social Media to Drive Measurable Results. And our presenter today is Yale Levey. Yale is founder and managing director of Next Generation Wealth Planning, a multidimensional wealth services firm inspired by tools and services he was exposed to through AIP. Yale is also a former AIP board member who headed up the Marketing and Media Relations Committee during his tenure, and he's also co-founder and current president for the Metro New York Philanthropic Advisors Network. In addition to his leadership of Next Generation Wealth Planning, Yale is now the Vice President of Business Development for Good Influence, which is a division of RPPL-FX. RPPL-FX is an innovative social media technology company. The company's Good Influence division is dedicated to helping nonprofits fully leverage the incredible possibilities of social media. The company's recently launched a transformational tool that allows nonprofit organizations to leverage the influence of existing supporters to drive new supporters through their social networks, and then it measures the impact. I wanted to let everybody know today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available under the members-only section of the AIP website starting tomorrow. And if you have any questions for Yale, you'll notice a question section in your control panel. Go ahead and type them in there. We're going to hold all the questions and address them all at the end. And with that, Yale, the floor is yours.
All right, great. Can you guys hear me okay? Sheila, can you hear me?
Yeah, everybody's muted, but yes.
Super. All right, great. Well, thank you very much, Sheila. I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today and to be able to present this webinar today. AIP, as Sheila pointed out, is an organization I've been involved in very, very intimately, actually, for quite a while now, since its birth. Back, I think it was January of '05, and it's really meant a lot to me to to kind of grow together with the organization. The organization has really helped me mature in my business and also as a person. So I really appreciate being able to be part of this today. I want to just let you know, so my agenda for today. We're going to, well, I'd like to sort of give you a little sense of kind of how I came to be here and why I'm doing this presentation. And then I'm going to go through this PowerPoint, the report that we put together, which will take probably about 30 minutes or so, to help people understand what we've learned and things we've developed. I would, at the end, hopefully after about 40-45 minutes, we'll be able to open this up to Q&A and answer anybody's questions. And then I'll also talk about some next action steps, some opportunities that have been made available to you for, really as a thank you for participating in today's presentation, in today's call, and some opportunities that have been made available to you as really as a thank you to you from AIP also. So as we begin, I always like to, I actually stole this from one of my heroes from AIP, from Scott Farnsworth. I noticed in being part of some of his workshops, he always encouraged people to write down their big ideas. So if you have any big ideas as we go through today, stop what you're doing, take out a piece of paper and a pencil, write it down, and then write down your action step. And as Sheila mentioned, we're going to be entertaining Q&A towards the end. So if you have any questions, other than just typing them in, I probably won't look at them until the end. You might want to just jot it down, and that way you can type it in towards the end as well. So with that being said, let me give you a little sense of kind of how I came to be here. So as Sheila pointed out, I used AIP tools to kind of build my business. And for the first 2/3 of my career, I was what I would define as sort of the traditional wealth advisor. I was helping people with investments and insurance, risk management, education planning, financial planning, and so on. And then I discovered AIP, and I began integrating all kinds of services, but also foundational kind of beliefs into my business. And really the foundation behind my core business is that your wealth is more than your money. And I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and said, well, if I'm running a wealth services firm and wealth is more than just my money, then how am I serving my clients with their personal wealth and their social wealth needs? And of course, charity and philanthropy is a huge part of that. And I only point that out just to point out that really when I began to integrate these other things into what I do, it really gave me the ability to have deeper conversations with people, and that began to help me to gain exposure to people that might not have otherwise wanted to work with me. And so I had the good fortune of beginning both a great friendship and a business relationship with somebody who made his mark in developing a very, very significant company that specialized in the digital media space, the social media space. And after some time, he introduced me to his partner who had built this company together with him. And his partner, whose name is Dan, is what I would define as probably the ideal client that I would be looking for, and I think that maybe many of the people on the phone, whether they be philanthropy advisors or working for a nonprofit, are looking for. Dan's a guy who really very much understands the value of giving back. He's got some financial means. He made money in business, but he really appreciates a multidimensional approach, and he really appreciates the value of giving back. And some years ago, he decided to create his own private family foundation with the intention of wanting to support local nonprofits in his community. And so, he organized a golf outing, for example, where he raised about $50,000 one year for juvenile diabetes, and another year he did another event where he raised money for Gilda's Club. And what he began to discover is something that I think a lot of us participating today already know, and that is that event-based fundraising is very, very difficult. For a nonprofit to run an event, oftentimes they're running on a limited budget. They've got limited time at their disposal. Resources are tight. They're understaffed. They're under-budgeted, overworked, and that's the world that most nonprofit people live in. They've got a zillion things going on all at once, and it's just very, very hard to get to get big events done. And although it can be very, very fruitful, it's difficult. As soon as you're done with your event this year, you're immediately planning for next year. It's just not scalable, and it's not sustainable. A lot of the times you're hitting up the same people, you're going back to the same well. It's a challenging environment. And so what Dan thought to himself is, well, gosh, I wonder if there's a way for me to combine my desire to want to do more and give back in terms of charity for the nonprofit world with my acumen and my professional expertise that I've developed in my for-profit world experience in building this social network company. So he wound up building something which we're going to touch on as we go through today, which in my mind is just absolutely brilliant. And I believe that it has the capacity to change fundraising as we know it. And so I was introduced to Dan through this other client slash friend of mine, and when I was exposed to Good Influence, I immediately saw the application for this, and it really began to excite me because for my career I've always been helping individuals and creating capacity in terms of helping people to understand their capacity on the planning side. But this gave me an ability to help nonprofits and help charities with their current fundraising needs. And so we'll touch on that a little later on in the presentation. But why don't I begin by walking you through. So here's what we have discovered. Hide that for a second. So here's what everybody's saying. What we've discovered in our experience is that everybody's buzzing about social media right now, and in particular in the nonprofit world, and everybody's sort of talking about how there's so much opportunity for nonprofits out there. I mean, if you look at the statistics, donations last year represented about 13%, or literally about $39 billion of all donations today came from online. And that segment of the giving world was growing at the fastest rate as well. It grew by about 35%. So it's definitely one of, if not the fastest growing segment within fundraising. Social media platforms create new communication channels that allow you to reach more donors. A lot of the tools are free. There's tremendous viral benefits. You can get a message out there and it can take on a life of its own. And there's even research out there that suggests that a fan on Facebook can have an actual value, a monetary value of about $200 for a nonprofit. So everybody's buzzing about this. I mean, when I go to social media for nonprofit conferences and I see presentations, this is the stuff that presenters are talking about. The first speaker gets up, he's saying this. The second speaker gets up and says the same thing. The third speaker gets up and says, I don't want to say the same thing, but, and then they go on and say the same thing. So it sounds really great, right? But the reality is that when we talk to people who work in the nonprofit world, what they're telling us is something that sounds very different. They're telling us, you know what, I've got challenges. I've got a million things on my plate. I don't know where to start. Integrating a social media initiative into our greater development initiative is going to be hard. It's confusing. We've got limited resources. I already am stressed for time. There's no budget for this. I'm feeling behind. How am I going to do this? So this is kind of what we're hearing. So in the real world, life is difficult for nonprofit employees. I mean, and I relate this back to Dan's experience when he was helping nonprofits through his foundation. He was experiencing the same thing, where people were just feeling overloaded and overwhelmed. And so, the thing is, I would caution you and I would tell you that, you might think that you're behind in terms of this whole social media initiative, but the reality is that you're really where almost everybody else is. And, you have to be careful, because I think doing nothing is really the worst, because that's where, paralysis sets in, and you don't want to do nothing. So we in our experience, have come across this study. It was the 4th Annual Nonprofit Social Network Report, which was put together by 3 different organizations, the Nonprofit Technology Network, Common Knowledge, and Blackbaud. And they came out with this last year, and we think that what's inside of this report is still very, very relevant. And, this report basically said the same thing. It said that for the most part, everybody's in the same spot. It speaks about, are you fundraising? And if you are, how are you using social media? It talks about the fact that nobody's really figured out yet how to make money out of this. That's really been the experience. Some organizations are doing well, but generally most organizations haven't figured this out yet. And, so a lot of the feeling coming out of nonprofits is that, they're not really sure even if social media and social media marketing works. because they haven't seen a lot of donations coming in. So if you look a little bit deeper into this study, what we did was we did that, and it was really interesting because the bottom line is that it said that today there just aren't a lot of organizations that are driving donations through social media. And this question was asked of the organizations polled, are you fundraising? And if you are you directly soliciting donations or membership on each of your commercial social networks? And if you're one of the few that are doing that, how much revenue have you actually produced over the last year? And so, what amazed me is that if you look at this chart here, you can see Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the others. Facebook, not surprisingly, is the most widely used social network, and 58% of organizations polled said that they're not even using it. So that means only 42% of organizations are using Facebook. And then when you get down into YouTube and LinkedIn and the others, it's between 90 to 100%. Almost 100% aren't even using those channels. And then when you look at the revenue that's being produced, I mean, again, even on Facebook, the contributions are relatively small. I mean, 30% only saw $0 to $1,000 on average in contributions. So the organizations that are fundraising aren't bringing in that much money, right? So the question is really then, well, what is being done? Where are the successes? And they wound up discovering that, well, there actually is a lot of success that's happening with nonprofits using social networks. First of all, social networks are creating tons of awareness and helping organizations build their base of supporters. So actually fundraising is not the main benefit, right? If you look at this next chart, you can see that 66% of the organizations said that their social network initiatives are helping them to increase their awareness, and 55% said that their base is being built up. So there are benefits and there are values in activities other than just raising money. There's other kinds of conversions and other kinds of success that maybe is a little softer than a hard dollar donation, and all of these things are important. So where's the value, right? Where is the actual value? And when this question was asked, how are you doing so far? How valuable overall are your commercial social network communities to your organization? 61% said that, you know what, it's definitely somewhat valuable. So this is where organizations are seeing success in social media. It's not so much the donations, which we like to refer to as sort of the bottom of the funnel. If you think of a big funnel with all kinds of activities and behaviors being in that funnel, you want to create momentum both in and down your funnel, and at the very, very end of that process, at the bottom of the funnel, are the donations. But there is success in momentum being drawn into your funnel at all places, even at the top of the funnel. And awareness and base building is very much at the top of the funnel. So why did so many organizations say it was somewhat valuable? It's because creating awareness and building your base are very important to the future viability of your organization. If you're going to survive, you need to be doing these things as well. So what do we recommend doing, right? This is really probably why most of you are on the call today, to know what do we do about this? Well, we identified 10 key actions in 2 core categories that we think you need to be paying attention to in order to succeed really well in 2013 and beyond. So let's look at those 10 things. Let's look at the 2 categories and the 10 things. So the first is you have to be active, and that means creating a baseline. Now, being active and creating a baseline is really about creating clarity about where you are right now. My favorite story or my favorite picture of clarity is from Alice in Wonderland. I don't know if you remember when Alice is walking down the road. She walks down the road, and at the center of the road, when she gets to the Y in the road, sits the Cheshire Cat. And she looks up at the cat and she says, which way should I go? And the cat says, well, where is it you'd like to go? And she says, I don't know. And so the cat says, well, then it doesn't matter. So how many of us want to know, should I do this or that, or I've got an idea I want to launch, but you're not really clear on how you're going to get there or even where you are right now. So building a baseline is really very much about getting clarity about where you are right now. And when you think of clarity, you need clarity on three things. Number one is, where am I now? Number two is, what do I want to do, and where am I going? And number three is, what do I do about it, right? So where am I now? Where do I want to be, and what do I have to do about it? So in terms of creating this baseline clarity, think about this. How often do you publish to social media? Do you publish daily? Are you getting stuff out there weekly? Are you doing it monthly? Or are you doing it ever? What channels are you using? Are you on Facebook? Are you on LinkedIn? Are you on Twitter? Or are you on YouTube? Right? How many likes do you have? How many followers do you have? How many impressions do you have? How many comments or shares do you have? Are you paying attention to this stuff? How much revenue has come in from your social networks? Which networks yield you the most? Which ones are actually paying off? How much cost are you absorbing by investing in your social network initiatives? How much time do you spend? Or do you invest? Do you invest 2 hours a week? Do you invest 4 hours a week, 20 hours a week? This is all about understanding, where you are right now. This is about where am I now? Because you can't build a strategy to increase your social media revenue by 2 times or 4 times or 10 times if you don't know where you're starting from, right? So again, building that base is really about getting clarity about where am I now. Excuse me. So once you've done that, the second key thing is that you need to understand and know who your audience is and the messaging that you want to deliver to them. So what I see is that sometimes people they know they got to get into this, and just to kind of get into this, they start just popping stuff off randomly, and that's really not the most effective use of your time and your efforts. It's really important to know who is your target audience, right? Maybe it should be a time-based initiative. Maybe, let's see, we're in January now. Maybe in March, if you're running some special event in March, you want to target, well, who's that audience who's the audience I want to target in March, and, is my messaging through my social media initiatives matching that targeted audience, right? Because if you think about your audiences, you're likely going to have current supporters, you're going to have prospective supporters, you're going to have volunteers, you're going to have all kinds of people. So who is it that you're targeting? Because you need to understand what messages do I want to deliver to those audiences so that your social media posts are consistent with whatever that desired message is. So number one is to create that baseline. Number two is to know your audience and the messages you want to deliver. The third bullet point is crawl, walk, run. Now, I hired a business coach for myself years ago in my business because I had this grand vision for what it was that I wanted to do in my business. I was going to change the world, and I was going to do it tomorrow, right? Very, very enthusiastic, and I was all gung-ho. And he looked at me and he said, Yale, you can't eat an elephant in one bite. Meaning, it's great that you want to do all this stuff, but, take little bites. Do a little bit at a time. You don't want to overwhelm yourself, and you don't want to, you don't want to suffer in your business or in your initiative because you're taking on too much at once. So, think about it for a second. If you do want to push yourself, so maybe if you're publishing monthly, you want to try going to weekly. Or maybe if you're publishing weekly, you want to try to go to bi-weekly or, even daily if you're able to do that. If you're not using any social network channels at all, start with Facebook, right? If you are using Facebook, try to add LinkedIn, try to add Twitter, but focus, focus, focus. Focus your efforts and start a little bit at a time. Once you get comfortable with the little bites that you're taking, then, push yourself a little harder, take some more. But this is how, if you think back to that second chart I showed you where people were feeling overwhelmed, this is how you deal with that. You don't try to take on too much at once, right? So crawl, walk, run. And the next activity you should be thinking about is you should think about developing an editorial calendar, right? Creating a baseline is knowing where I am today, knowing my audience is targeting those messages. Follow-up run is how frequently am I going to deliver those messages. Developing an editorial calendar is really about what am I going to say and when, right? So why not build a calendar? In February, we've got our marathon coming up. In April, we've got our fundraising dinner coming up. In May, we've got our poker tournament. So let me sequence my messages so that they're consistent with what we're trying to do. Just like if I had a magazine and I had an editorial magazine, I'd need to, I'd have my editorial layout. In the fall, I want to talk about this. In the winter, I want to talk about that. So this next screen is an example of what an editorial calendar could look like. If you look at daily touches can be about, repurposing information. You see something or you read something that you think your community might have some interest in, get it out there. Send it out in an email, right? Or maybe you want to blast out an article that you saw or let your followers know about studies that you came across or things like that. That's what daily touches could be like. Weekly are a little bit more substantial. You might talk about organization-specific events, news activities, things that you've got coming up that are a little bit more comprehensive than just daily touches. And then your most comprehensive touches could be monthly, something like a thought leadership piece, right? Something that really takes you more time to prep, but you want to get out there. And you really do need to do stuff regularly, because if you're just trying to get a thought leadership piece out now and you're not doing anything daily, then who's going to pay attention to you? People have to know who you are. And so if you're getting stuff out daily or weekly, you're going to have more credibility. And you want your leadership piece to carry some credibility. So this is an example of an editorial calendar. The next bullet point is you want to use engaging and compelling content. So one of the organizations I work with does this same sort of stuff in a for-profit arena, and they did a great test where they were working with proactive skincare, and they were really, really good at getting people at using engaging and compelling content and getting people to act, right? So this should really include both what I publish and how engaging it is, but how often am I engaging people in my brand? It's really about brand. And I like using open-ended questions, and that's what this organization was doing. They would do stuff like, when they were trying to get people to act, they would get people to fill in the blank. Here's a great article. What do you think about it? Or if you had to do this, what would you do? Or what's your favorite whatever? Or how would you answer this question? So, when they were working with their client Proactive, they would pose questions like, I knew Proactive was right for me when, and encourage people to fill in the blank. Clear skin has made me feel blank, right? Or if they were trying to get people to like them, click like if you feel more like yourself with clear skin. Click like if you feel more outgoing with clear skin. Click like if you always remember to put on sunscreen, right? So, you could use the same strategy even if you're a nonprofit. What if you were, let's say, an autism charity? You could say something like, tell us something your autistic kid to really inspire you. Share that with us, right? So there's all kinds of ways to encourage people. So you want to use that content to do that. Now the next bullet point is really critical, which is why I've bolded it out. You need to remember that success is the whole funnel. It's not just the bottom of the funnel, okay? And this really speaks to expectations, right? What are your expectations for success? So here's an example of the whole funnel, okay? This is what I was talking about earlier. At the top of the funnel, you've got impressions. Then you've got shares, follows, likes, comments, volunteers, registrants. And then you've got pledges and you've got donations, right? And, donations are great, and that's what everybody wants. But all these other things that are integrating into your funnel are absolutely critical. So I met with a guy who's a social media expert that sells to corporations, and he thinks that social media is the bottom of the funnel. And I told him, well, I totally disagree with you. I think it's the top of the funnel, and it's the whole funnel, because it's really about driving awareness and engagement. Remember, where are nonprofits seeing success? They're seeing success in expanding that awareness and engagement, because awareness and engagement leads to conversations. Conversations lead to more engagement. Engagement leads to donations. That's how you're driving people down that funnel. And remember, awareness is critical. There's 1.5 million charities in the country. How do you stand out? Right? And you know, it's not so easy to stand out sometimes. The average donor has anywhere from 3 to 5 donations. So, you know, again, creating that brand awareness, getting your name out there, having people buzzing about you is absolutely critical. Okay, so we talked about the 6 categories on top, or 6 action steps within that first key category, being active. The next category is about how do I use my current supporters to drive new supporters. So if you think about it, your current supporters are your low-hanging fruit, okay? They are the ones that would be predisposed to probably want to help you most. And they've already voted for you, if you will. So what we did was we did a test. We wanted to find out, well, what would happen if you asked current supporters to get the awareness out there, to share with their friends, with their networks, with their social network connections, why it is that they're supporting you, and that, in fact, that they are even supporting you. And because everybody's saying, you know, you have to ask current supporters to share, but nobody really has any data, nor has anybody really done this in a really effective way. So what we did was we wanted to build a test, and we built a technology that actually could help people to ask, but also to measure all the data. So what would happen if we asked them to share in a somewhat intrusive kind of way? And I want to show you what that looks like and what we came up with. So we asked, okay, we engaged current donors and supporters at the time of conversion or at the time of sale. So normally, think about this for a minute. So again, there's 1.5 million charities in the country, and for the most part, the donation process for online contributions is pretty much the same across the board. I go onto your website, I click on the Donate tab, I you know, make my donation, I'll pay using my credit card or PayPal or whatever, and then typically I'm routed to a thank you or a confirmation page where I'm given a confirmation number, and then that's generally the end of the experience. So what we did was we created a brand new experience. After the donor has made a contribution, after they've gotten their confirmation number, we invented this iframe that sits in front of the confirmation page, so that instead of just exiting your confirmation page, you're now saying to them, hey, you've just made this contribution, thank you so much. However, how would you like to do even more? And so, you know, I might be a Facebook user, maybe I've got 500 friends in my network, I think, yeah, you know, I'd like to do a little bit more. So I click on Facebook, and then I'm prompted to log into Facebook, where I can then share with my Facebook friends what it is that I'm doing. And then what we're doing is, behind the scenes, we're measuring all of this. So this is sort of an example of what the donor would see. They log into Facebook, and you know, there's a pre-populated message presented by the charity, which can be customized by the charity to get a message out there. But then the donor can populate a personalized message and tell their social networks, hey, I just donated to a great cause. Here's why I'm doing it. You know, why don't you join me? They share this with their social networks, and then their friends see that, and presumably, you know, I might not have a connection to, you know, United Way or Save the Children or American Cancer Society or whatever, but I might really love Sheila, and I might think, gosh, you know, I want to help her out, so I click on the link where I'm routed back to the charity's website, and I can now either learn more about them or I can make a donation myself. So, interestingly, now we are a startup company, and we've gone live. We were in beta the latter part of last year, but we've been working with many different organizations, and we've been working with probably about 30 different organizations so far, and this is an example of a summary report that charities get to see when they utilize the test and the technology that we created. And interestingly, many of you on the call know Sheila. Sheila's the executive director for AIP, but she also helps out with many other organizations. She works for an association management company, and she was working with a different nonprofit that was actually one of our beta test charities. And so this was an example of a charity event that organization ran over a 2-week period. And so what this tells you, if you look at in the center of the page where it says GI box view and there's the number 50, what that's telling you is that 50 people had made a contribution, gotten their confirmation number, and saw that iframe pop up. And out of the 50 people, if you look to the right, you'll see the number 24. Out of those 50 people who were the original donors, 24 of them actually said to themselves, yeah, you know what, I'm willing to share. I'm willing to tell my friends, my social networks, what it is that I did. And so 24 divided into 50 is 48%. So 48% of the people in this instance actually converted and decided, yes, I'm going to share with my social networks what I did. Now those 24 people touch, gosh, who knows how many aggregated social network connections. Could be 500, 1,000, could be a couple of thousand people that those 24 people are reaching out to. But out of that aggregated social network, out of the 24 people's aggregated social network, if you look down below, you'll see that 250 people clicked back on the link that they saw to then get routed back to the charity's website. So that is, if you do the math, for each of the 24 people, 10.5 people basically, 10.42 people came back to the charity's website, all because the original donor asked their friends to do something. So that's huge. That's a 48% share rate. 10.5 referrals per share, and in this instance, they had gotten base contributions, original donations from the original 50 people, but out of those 250 people, they, in aggregate, donated extra money to actually bring in an extra 13.65% in what we're calling good influence lift, extra revenue. Now this next chart is a different organization. This is a nonprofit-focused research company that, interestingly, it was asking people to fill out a survey, and they did this over a 2-month period. In this example, there were 3,288 people that saw that iframe pop up, and out of the 3,288, 465 of them were willing to share. So 14.14% were willing to share. And you could see in the middle, obviously, all the different channels. Not surprisingly, most of the activity occurs on Facebook. 63%, or 295 out of the 465, came from Facebook. But again, out of the 465, they're touching, it's probably thousands of aggregated social network connections. It might be 5,000 or 10,000 people. And out of all those people, 1,016 clicked back on the link to go back to the charity. So those 465 people were willing to bring in an extra 1,000 people, which is 2.18 referrals per share. Now in this instance, out of the 1,016 people, only 6 people converted. And conversions in my vernacular are people that make extra donations. But I put this chart up here because I want to point out something that I said a little earlier, and that is that success is not necessarily the bottom of the funnel, is it? Success is creating tons of awareness also, getting your brand out there, having people more aware. And there was enormous awareness created in this initiative, right? So the key here is look at all the awareness that's been created in the funnel, okay? Now, we needed to, as an organization, we wanted to understand, well, what's going on with all this awareness? It's great that, they're getting some donations, but it'd be even better if we could measure and test the awareness. So what we did was we invented this conversion page to begin to understand what's happening with all the awareness. So instead of just directing somebody right from, let's say, the original donor's Facebook page right to your donation page, we thought, well, what if we create a traffic cop? And let's make that traffic cop find out and ask the friend of the original donor, well, what is it that you want to know? Do you want to make a contribution? And that's that first tab. Maybe you don't have time to make a contribution right now. Maybe you're on a mobile device and you can't make a contribution now, but you're willing to later. Just, make a pledge right now. Take 10 seconds. Tell us your name, your email address, your phone number, what's the best time to call you, and we'll get in touch with you. Or maybe you're willing to like us on Facebook. Remember, a Facebook like could be worth as much as $200. Maybe you want to follow us on Twitter. Maybe you want to learn more about our organization. All of these things are different types of success, right? If somebody follows you on Twitter, that's a success. If they go back to your homepage or some other page to learn more information about you, that's a success. So it's important to measure the whole funnel, right? Not just the bottom of the funnel. And to measure what's happening with all of that awareness. And so we began to do that. And this next chart is an example of the measurement of that funnel. This was a different organization, a Health and Human Aid Services nonprofit. And over 2 months, this was their experience when people went to that funnel page, that conversion page. They had 22 people. Now, this is very interesting. They had 22 people view that page. And of the 22 people that viewed that page, you could see the numbers. 6 chose to donate, 6 chose to pledge. But if you look to the right, it says 25. Well, the reason there's more people on the right than there is on the left, there's more people under total than under page views, is because they actually had 25 actions. So some people, a couple of people, chose to do more than one thing. Maybe they wanted to both make a pledge and also learn more. Or maybe they were willing to donate and also follow you on Twitter. So we had, out of the 22 people in this example, we actually had 113% conversions, right? There was more conversions than there were page views. Okay, so we asked, we tested, we measured, right? We motivated, because really what our technology is doing is it's facilitating this, sharing, it's motivating them through use of motivating messaging, and then we're testing it, right? But then we thought to ourselves, well, what if we could do even more? What we want to try to maximize the impact that charities are having. How can we do that? Well, one way to do that was to create a feature where we could allow donors to set goals, because we found that when somebody has a personal goal that they're willing to set, their friends, their relatives, their associates, they're more willing to help. And when people are willing to set a personal goal, people like helping others achieve their goals. So we wanted to facilitate or enable people the ability to do that and then to measure that. And I will talk to you about the results of the goal setting on our next webinar. But let me walk you through what that looks like for donors. So the first thing is we built this to allow donors to share on Facebook that they want to set a personal goal, right? They click on Facebook, they go through much like they do, in the other example that I showed you. And so we built this ability to facilitate this. And then we said to them, okay, pick a goal, right? $500, $1,000, $2,500, whatever. I mean, maybe you want to, sponsor, if you're an organization that works with kids, sponsor 10 kids, sponsor 20 kids, sponsor 100 kids, etc. We can personalize all this for the organizations. The donor then clicks, next after they've set their goal, and then we're asking them permission to update their Facebook wall, because if they allow us this permission, then every time somebody chips away at their goal, we can update their Facebook wall so that that message stays constant and top of mind, both to their donors, but also to the donor that, to their friends, but also to the donor that made that original goal. And then we give the donor the opportunity to personalize or populate a message so that they can personalize their goal to their friends and ultimately share it. And again, at the end of this, we track the whole thing. So we've built this ability to set goals and measure that. We also have created the ability to do A/B testing. So there's several points of conversion when you think about it using a technology like this. There's when the original donor says, yes, I'm willing to share, and clicks on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, that's a conversion point. When a friend sees that message and clicks on that link to go back to the charity, that's a conversion point. When the donor clicks that they want to make a pledge or they want to learn more or whatever, that's a conversion point. When they actually go back to the charity's website and click donate or do some other action, that's a conversion point. And so what we did was we built the ability to, to test that so that maybe we want to drive half the traffic to the conversion page and half the traffic to a goal sharing page and test and see, well, what works best. And that way we can optimize and we can help charities make an even bigger impact and have even better results. So that's the 9th action step. The 10th action step is the same as the 6th. Remember that success is the whole funnel. It's not just the bottom of the funnel. And this is so important that I put it in there twice because, I think that the key here is to remember expectations, right? Remember that you have a whole funnel and that at the top of the funnel you've got learning more, impressions, you've got likes, you've got shares, you've got follows, but then as you go down deeper and deeper into the funnel, you've got pledges and you've got donations. And the critical thing, the key is to be pushing momentum both in your funnel and down your funnel. You can't know where your donor is in terms of their decision-making process, whether they're ready to make a donation right now or whether they need to be touched 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. And one of the great things about our technology is, aside from facilitating all of this sharing, what it also does is it helps the donor to self-identify as being somebody who's willing to do more for you, right? It helps you to understand, hey, this is a person who's pushing themselves deeper down that funnel. So now you do know who to pay attention to. I mean, if you have 3,000 or 5,000 or 20,000 names in your database, how do you know who the key people are that you want to be engaging with? You need a mechanism to help those people self-identify. And so whether it's this or something else, I would argue that that's part of what social media networking and interacting with your donors in social media can help you to understand. So that is the bulk of my presentation, and I want to open this up to Q&A. So I'm sure people have questions. I left about 15 minutes here for both Q&A and also if anybody had any big ideas, I'll want to open up the lines to to allow you to share your big idea with everybody else. And I do also want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about the action steps, what you can do to to capitalize on what you've heard today, but also some opportunities that AIP has made available. So Sheila, I don't know if you're there, if we can start taking some questions.
I am here, and let's just get into the questions.
If you have any questions. I'm not very IT savvy, so I see there's a couple of questions. Let's see.
Sorry, for some reason my window is very small.
Okay, yeah, mine's very small too, but okay. I'm going to read this out loud. There's a question from, it looks like Carl, I'm not sure. How is the donor who uses social media but wants to remain anonymous get addressed? Many donors want to do so. That's a great question. Well, so if a donor chooses to share, I assume, by the way, that you're talking about with my technology here with Good Influence. So if a donor chooses to share, then they're telling their friends that, hey, I just contributed to a great cause and I want you to join me. So they're not going to be anonymous to their friends, right? Their friends are going to know. They're proactively telling their friends, hey, I'm willing to do this. But we have about, I want to say, 12 to 15 different parameters of information that the nonprofit can pass through to us if they so choose to. The only thing that's absolutely required that we need to be able to collect from the nonprofit is the dollar amount of the donation, both the originating donor's donation amount and then any friends that come in. We're tracking the donation amount. So if Sheila contributes $100 and then I contribute $100, each of us are assigned a unique tracking number, and the dollar amount is actually able to be tracked so that we can determine what is originating donation and then what is good influence lift. We have to be able to track that. But if you wanted to open up the parameters so that we could see the donors' names, you know, one of the things that this technology can do is it can say, it can allow you to see if Sheila contributed $100, she might not normally be on your radar screen, but you know, maybe Sheila blasts out her desire to share with 500 of her Facebook friends, and 25 of them in aggregate contribute an extra $2,500. Well, you know, Sheila, who is the $100 donor, might not normally be on your radar screen, but if all of a sudden she's responsible in bringing in an extra 25 new donors who contribute $2,500, then now you know she's somebody who's engaged with you, and if you're opening up those parameters, you could tell her, hey, here's the 25 friends of yours who contributed, here's who they are, here's how much they gave, and you could go and thank them. Or you could go hit up the other 475 who didn't contribute that. So it allows you to have a different kind of relationship. But if you wanted to keep those parameters closed, you can. So if you're worried about confidentiality or anything, then you know, we're able to protect against that. Any other questions?
We have another question from Carolyn, and she says, if we're just starting out, how much time should I allocate each week to be effective at building a base of followers?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. You know, again, I would go back to the crawl, walk, run item. I think the key is to not overload or overwhelm yourself, and if this is a brand new thing for you, you know, try to build in a couple hours a week. If you can just carve out, you know, even a half an hour a day, just to begin to shine the flashlight on this, to begin to educate yourself, understand the universe of what's out there. You know, one of the things that we can do is, you'll see that my email, ylevey@rpplfx.com, is on the bottom of the thank you page. If anybody wants a copy of that research report that I referenced, just to begin to kind of start that process for you, where you can begin to educate yourself, shoot me an email and I'll email that out to you. So that could be a good place for you to start, and then think about, after you read that report, how do I budget some time in for me? How do I fit it on my plate? So I have a question here. It looks like I have a question from Dan. How does the pricing work on this, on your product? Thank you for asking that. Well, one of the great things that we're really proud of is that because we're trying to make this accessible to as many charities as we can, you know, how can we do that? And so we didn't want to make pricing a hurdle for organizations. So what we're doing is, for nonprofits, we are charging just a small setup fee to get it up on your website, because it does take us a couple of hours to do that, and there's sometimes some work involved there. So we charge a $500 setup fee. But other than that, the only other expense or cost there is we're keeping 3% of any of the good influence lift that was created. So in plain English, you know, if your original donors bring you $10,000, you know, we don't have anything to do with that. Those are donors that you already have. They've made contributions to you. But if those donors bring in an extra $5,000 in good influence lift, well, that's extra contributions that you would not have gotten if it weren't for this technology. And so what we're doing is we're keeping 3% of that, or actually what we do is we invoice organizations at the end of the month, just basically saying to them, okay, so you owe us 3% of the $5,000. And that way, it's 100% performance-based. So if there's no lift created, if this doesn't work for you, you're not paying anything for it. And it's that way we're keeping the bar very, very low. And this addresses, you know, part of what we realized were issues for nonprofits. You know, they don't have the budget for this. They don't have a lot of money to spend on tools right now. So if there's a way for us to, you know, to break that barrier down, this was our way of doing that, of just creating a performance-based model. And what we're hearing from different charities also is that, you know, if I have a $100 donor that I've just acquired, it might cost me in tools or marketing effort or just money that we're spending to get new donors. It might actually cost us the same $100 to acquire that brand new donor. So this, if you think about it, is a really, really effective way to acquire a brand new donor, because in this instance, if a friend refers in another friend and you've got a brand new $100 donor, it's only costing you $3 to acquire that new donor, and you didn't have to do anything to get the donor. It was your donor who did it. So, you know, that's really the brilliance of this, I think. It's your donors become your evangelists, if you will, your champions. Do we have any other questions? Let's see if I can.
It looks like that is it.
Okay.
We'll give it maybe a couple more seconds in case people are typing.
Right. Yeah, I want to also open up the lines to one or two big ideas. So can we do that, Sheila? If anybody, can we just?
Do you want to open up everybody, or if somebody has a big idea that they want to share, just type "big idea" in the question box, and I'll unmute just you. I think that might be a little bit easier, so we don't get a lot of white noise.
All right, because I'm not seeing where I can. I'm not seeing all the different attendees' names, so I don't know if I can.
Oh, I can do it. So if anybody has a good idea to share.
Okay, great. Yeah, if anybody had a big idea of how to leverage this, it would be great to share it with everybody else. And just while, you know, in the event that somebody's thinking of something or not, let me just take the last couple of minutes also and just let you know what AIP has made available for you in terms of a great opportunity. So I mentioned that normally we charge a $500 startup fee to get organizations going. If you want to utilize this technology, and if you are an AIP member, we will give you a 25% discount off of that startup fee. So all you would need to do is just email me at the ylevey@rippleeffects.com email address and let me know that you want to do that, and put in, you know, in the subject line, put in coupon code AIP so that I know that you're coming from AIP. If you're an advisor who is listening in here and you're working with charities and you want to make this available to them, we will let you extend that same discount if you're an AIP member. So you can also leverage that. Or if you're an advisor and you think, gosh, you know, I could bring in 10 organizations, you know, we can pass that discount on to you. So we can pay you $125 per charity if you wanted to. If you're a non-AIP member, and, well, this is a great example of one of the AIP benefits. You might want to think about becoming an AIP member, but if you don't want to do that right now, just because you're listening to us through AIP, we are still willing to give you something. And so for non-AIP members, we'll give you a 10% discount off of the startup fee. So again, excuse me, just email me and let me know that you're interested and we can have a conversation. Or if you want that report emailed to you, you can email me and I can get that out to you as well. Excuse me. So I don't know if we have any other questions or any big ideas. If not, then I think we are coming to the end of our hour anyway.
Right. So if anybody has a question kind of after the fact, go ahead and email Yale at that Ripple Effects, or, you know, for some reason you can't get your hands on that, email me and I can put you in touch with Yale, and I can be found through the AIP website, Advisors in Philanthropy, or Sheila at advisorsinphilanthropy.org.
And also, if anybody, I'm sorry, also if anybody wants a copy of this PowerPoint, you can email me and I can email it out to you as well.
Great. So on behalf of everybody, Yale, thank you so much for this presentation. We appreciate you sharing with us. And everybody, we will watch your email box for our February webinar details, and don't forget to sign up for the conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you.